My name's Dan Dunkel, and I'm the editor of the Courier-Gazette. And I'm here with Bill Morong, who is the CEO of Yachting Solutions. And back around November, we started hearing about plans that people are coming to think of as the Yachting Solutions plan, basically for some changes down in the harbor and Harbor Park. And my understanding is the changes might create some more docking, which can create some more revenue for the city if they sell that docking area. Attract larger yachts, bigger than 130 feet in length, and that it might also make possible some of the plans for redesign of Harbor Park that have been in the books for something like 20 years. And the other side of it is there have also been talk about, this would relocate some of the moorings, it might interfere with the South Channel, and it might move the small visiting cruise ships down to Buoy Park and move the harbor master down to Buoy Park. So I just thought, well, we could get you in here and we could talk a little bit about it.
Appreciate the opportunity, Dan. Let me kind of back up, because a few of those things you said are correct, but some of them are misperceptions. You are correct that around in November or so, we started, putting out for public input a concept plan, and that's really all this is ever intended to be, is a concept plan. We, as the public, I think already knows, applied for and were awarded a BIG, Boating Infrastructure Grant Fund grant for development of the Yachting Solutions boat basin, expanding that. And what the idea was, is we said, look, we're going to build something over here. We're going to expand our marina. Maybe we should be asking some other people what they're doing, too, so we're not doing something over here in our corner in a vacuum, right? So we started reaching out to the harbor master and the city manager and Proc Marine and Mike Sabatini from Landmark Engineering, because we had heard that there was some challenges going on with the infrastructure over at Buoy Park and also Harbor Park. So we started just getting together informally and saying, well, okay, if we're going to build something, could we build something that would be helpful to what you're doing? Could we piggyback any efforts? If we're going to create any wave attenuation, should we be considering wave attenuation for the inner harbor as well? Is there something that we can do collaboratively here that makes sense? So what got released was basically the fruit of those discussions, and it was by no means a Yachting Solutions exclusive plan. It was really just a collaborative effort with some concepts that we all thought would be a good idea. We ran them initially by folks like the festival organizers, the Lobster Festival, the Blues Festival, things of that nature, generally well received. And then we started, talking to ACL Lines, for example, the small cruise ship that seems to be pretty well received, seeing how they liked the plan. They had us make some changes. And so then we started throwing it out there for public comment and saying, what do you guys think? And unfortunately, it got off on the wrong foot. A lot of people took it as gospel, and this is what's being built. And that's not what was intended. The intention was for folks to look at all of the plan, including what was being considered at Harbor Park and Buoy Park, and weigh in. What did they like about it? What didn't they like about it? And
well, let me jump in on that.
Yeah.
So you've started kind of having public hearings and discussions publicly. Has the plan changed as a result of these discussions? Has it been amended? What are some of the differences that have maybe taken place in it?
Well, as I said in the council meeting on February 14th, the goal here was to have folks weigh in on the plan. And in fact, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the harbor master organized a meeting for us with the main opposition group, Sensible Harbor Infrastructure Planning, SHIP. And we got to hear from them what their major oppositions were. And so in fact now I just had a meeting with Gary Neville from Proc and Bud Brown, who's doing the permitting process, and Mike Sabatini from Landmark. I just had that on Thursday or Friday, saying, all right, this is what I heard from SHIP. How could we make these amendments? Roughly, what's the change in dredge volume? cost, all that kind of stuff. So we're in the midst of looking at that now. We're in the midst, right now as we speak, of taking that input from the public and saying, all right, what makes sense about their objections? How could we maybe do it a little bit better to take those objections into account? And we're in the middle of moving that around as we speak.
So did you have a sense from talking to that group that there's a way, that there is some middle ground where they would come away happy and you would be able to accomplish some of your goals for your business? And,
yeah, I mean, what we've heard,
various things?
What we've heard loud and clear, both in the public meetings and from the ship group, is that the main concerns are visual impact from the harbor front, and also South Channel. What affects South Channel? Those seem to be the major hot buttons. Unfortunately, not many people seem to have seem to see the value in creating additional protection for the inner harbor. That seems to kind of be lost. That message seems to be a little bit lost.
In terms of protection from waves and weather and stuff? Through
the harbor master has said loud and clear, and the ex-harbor master as
wave
well.
Wave breakers.
Yeah, wave attenuators. That was one of the goals, kind of as we got together, is how could we create a better inner harbor? I mean, if you start looking through cruising guides in any area of the country, you'll see, basically breakwaters set up to create inner harbor protection. So it's not an unusual concept, and that was the original goal. But in general, the public seems to be more concerned about the visual impact of boats that might dock on those wave attenuators, or the visual impact of the wave attenuator themselves, than they are about the benefits of attenuating that wave action.
Well, why don't you outline what are some of the benefits, other than to you and your business and the various partners that are in the group? What do you think would be the benefits? Like, say I live in Rockland. What benefits might I experience as a Rockland resident?
Well, I think that you're already seeing the benefits of the economic impact that some development has had in Rockland. Main Street is better today than it was 10 years ago. I mean, I think everybody can agree on that. And I think anytime you're bringing some prosperity to a city and you're improving infrastructure, it's going to be felt in every restaurant, in every store. I think small businesses, people are going to buy more papers. I mean, I just think
what are some of the infrastructure things? My understanding is it might affect the boardwalk area and the overall look of the harbor park.
The original concept, which unfortunately, we haven't had a whole lot of input from the public on that. If everybody's just kind of been focused on the Yachting Solutions side of the harbor. And I'd love to hear some more public input on what we talked about doing in the plan for Buoy Park and Harbor Park.
Well, explain. Yeah, bring those out a little bit. What would that be?
So right now there are, basically the main pier at Harbor Park is more or less structurally condemned. It needs work at some point. We have a floodplain issue that is changing. And there are access challenges, especially during festivals. We all agree that the festivals are great. They bring a lot of great activity to the city. You bring in more people to the city. You bring in more prosperity to the city during those times. But access for the yacht club, access for boaters going down in that area, taking their dinghies out and whatnot. During Lobster Festival, it's hard to find parking in the city. So the concept is that we would expand the boardwalk. Everybody seems to be a really big fan of the boardwalk, and we really want to promote that. So to expand the boardwalk all the way over and past Buoy Park, it would move the Yacht Club and Harbor Master building over to Buoy Park, and it would create a dedicated pier, middle pier, for commercial traffic, which would include cruise ship traffic. So then we could accommodate those smaller cruise ships, and again, the focus really was on the smaller cruise ships that bring in a few hundred people at a time. It wasn't contemplated in any of the discussions that we had about how to better provide for large traffic. We know that's somewhat controversial. So the idea was that those smaller cruise ships could come, other commercial traffic could be operating out of Middle Pier, and bringing more prosperity to that downtown section.
To be somewhat busier harbor.
Well, I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. Or at the very least, we could accommodate the same traffic we're having at all times, instead of just when the festivals were in between. I think it could create some more opportunity for day sailor traffic, if more operators wanted to work out of Rockland. So, if if that were to happen, then of course
From a
that'd be
historical
busier.
perspective, it's actually been, there was, at one point it was one of the busiest harbors on the eastern seaboard in terms of the lime industry, as far as
Yeah,
all the ships coming out of here.
Sure,
which-
and there's traffic in other harbors that that is finding Rockland, and it's finding Rockland regardless of any of this infrastructure. It's happening because of the restaurants. It's happening because of the museums. It's happening because Rockland is coming alive and growing.
So from your perspective, you see this as an opportunity for us to accomplish some of our goals as a city, because the city has some infrastructure things it wants to do.
Yeah.
In a partnership kind of a
That was the original
situation.
goal, is that there was always, whenever you're applying for federal grant funds for anything, anytime that you can work collaboratively with private and public or municipal cooperation, those applications are always looked at more favorably.
So basically, you guys get it. You've got the grant. You kind of come in and you say, "Geez, like we got to sit down with Tom Luttrell. We got to sit down with people over at City Hall and say, what can we do? How can this work for everybody?"
Right. How could exactly. We were really trying to, instead of staying over here in our vacuum and building our little marina, we just thought that there were other projects in the city, and we should at least be taking those into consideration and figuring out how we could work collaboratively.
And one of the pieces too, I think people often forget, is the boardwalk isn't a city entity. The boardwalk is actually owned, I believe, by
Correct.
Charles Stewart, and I can't remember the name of the group that owns the Boston Financial Building area.
Right. Yeah. So
That's actually privately owned.
that's privately
but
owned.
publicly, used.
Yep. That's correct. There's been a easement or whatever across that property for public use. Stewart Smith's group manages the property, and they're the ones who manage that boardwalk and maintain the boardwalk facility as well.
So the people who are going to be displaced, as far as their moorings go, do they get to have moorings somewhere else? And
Yeah,
I guess that's part of the piece that I think has been really a big concern in the public meetings and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a couple of options, and it's really up to the harbor master to decide which is the best one. Has really not much to do with us, in truth. The original BIG grant application that we were awarded and had contemplated building infrastructure with displaced half a dozen moorings. I'm using that number off the top of my head. It was not a large number. And of course, those would be redirected into another location. The mooring field is not organized. It was never laid out linearly to maximize how many boats you could get in the harbor and to make sure that they're not bumping into each other. According to the harbor master, he gets multiple calls every season of boats swinging into each other, especially in light breeze. So, he's got the opportunity, if it made sense financially, to reorganize the entire mooring field, take this opportunity to do that and facilitate more moorings in the harbor and a better layout for everyone. Or we could simply take any displaced moorings and find room for them out there in the mooring field.
How does it work? Now, does the city own the mooring spots, or do the people who have the moorings own those
Yep.
themselves? How does that?
My understanding is that individuals own the gear, and it is effectively a 1 year. Your spot is effectively a 1 year lease for the city, and the spot is not owned or permanently granted.
Right, so the city can kind of decide where it wants to put these things.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It is up to the city and the harbor master in general.
Right. Which creates a little bit of a political situation, because there's the differing different groups have different objectives here, obviously.
Sure, but the harbor master should always, do what's best for the harbor and for the mooring field in general. And I think that there is some opportunity. Although you'll never make everyone happy, but I think there is some opportunity that he stated to organize it in a little bit more beneficial fashion for everyone. And I'm not sure if he's going to end up going down that road or if he's just going to try and make sure everybody's accommodated that might be displaced.
Where are we at in the approval process? Can you kind of take me through, is this going to get voted on by a specific board at a specific time? Give me a timeline and
Yeah.
and what we can expect for the future.
My understanding of it is, and I may not have this correct, but my understanding of it is that really for the initial, we went to the city council kind of with the plan, and that was the February 14th meeting and the proposal or the concept, and that was for public input. And I think if the city were to adopt that or modify it and adopt it or whatever, I think that is a council decision. For what I need to do on my corner of the harbor, it's more of a planning board issue, making sure that the upland development meets code, etc.
Do you have any dates yet for any of the upcoming meetings that are going to
No,
take
there's
place
nothing
on this?
scheduled right now.
Okay.
And
do you think it'll be midsummer,
what
end
I
of
can,
summer?
What I can tell you is in addition to planning board approval, we also need Army Corps and DEP approval to cover the in-water portions. I've been told that process is roughly a year. It takes a little bit of time.
So we'll be talking about this for a while.
Yeah, yeah. But what we're hoping to do is come together in a consensus with folks that are for and opposed to the development, and create a plan that everybody can wrap their arms around.
I guess one of the questions I would ask is, what would you say to the people who have, come out at the meetings and spoken, really strongly in opposition to this project? They're very concerned about it. They think that this is really bad for them. I mean, how do you respond to that?
I think it's driven by a couple of things. Number one, I think people made the assumption, unfortunately, that the concept that was presented was set in stone, and it was up to them to make a rally cry and make sure it doesn't happen, because they didn't like portions of the plan, and people had different portions they didn't like. It's been difficult, even though I really tried to drive the point home on the council meeting, that we're really receptive to public input and receptive to making modifications based on public input. And I just think it's been taking a long time for that message to get out, because it was like there was a foregone conclusion. There were people signing petitions on the night of the 14th meeting. We hadn't even presented the concept yet or anything about it. So I think unfortunately, it was viewed as a foregone conclusion, something that we were going to city council for a vote on, and people felt like they needed to speak out loudly against it because there were pieces of it that they didn't like, and those pieces varied from individual to individual. So we've been listening and really taking the time to understand what folks didn't like. And like I said, the two kind of big blazing red lights are really the South Channel topic and the view from Harbor Park, making sure we maintain the view corridor from Harbor Park and the South Channel. So those seem to be the real hot button issues that I'm hearing from people, and like I said, we're trying to figure out how we could address those right now.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? I feel
No,
like
like I said, I really hope that the folks take the time to really look at the city portions of the concept and have as much enthusiasm and energy for that portion of it as they are for the Yachting Solutions corner of the harbor, because I think there was a lot of really great ideas that were presented there, and I think that we've got some opportunity. Harbor Park could really be the finest asset in the city. I mean, it really almost should be. It could be the gem. It's the waterfront property of the city. It's consistent no matter who I talk to. Everybody loves the breakwater, or the boardwalk, and wants to maintain that and expand it if possible.
I think they like the breakwater too.
Yeah, I think they like the breakwater too. And I think that we've got an opportunity to really create a real gem in our city, where we could attract more festivals, we could attract any types of different venues that I think that could be held there. And I think that, unfortunately, the message really got focused on the Yachting Solutions corner, which is important, but I really just would encourage folks to really weigh in on all of the concept, so we can modify that and make changes from what we're hearing there as well, because I think that I would love to see the community rally behind, we see it up in Camden sometimes, where the Snow Bowl, wants to get into a project, and people rally and create a group, and for community projects, it happens a lot in other communities, and I think this is an opportunity for Rockland to really wrap their arms around what could be the gem of the city. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being with us. I appreciate you taking this time.
Absolutely, thanks for the opportunity.
Great.